A father drove a wood-paneled Buick wagon through a Sears parking lot in Cleveland on a Saturday in 1986. His two kids stood in the cargo area, no belts, eating soft serve, while a lit cigarette sat in the dash ashtray and lawn darts rode in the trunk. Number 16 on this list recalled 17 million units in a single federal action. Number 12 could land a CB radio enthusiast in front of a federal judge for an antenna upgrade. Number 5 on this list is a household substance the EPA now classifies as a residential pollutant. Buried in the recall archive of 1989 is the entire JCPenney catalog of that decade. None of it was illegal in 1986. Then the lawsuits, the recalls, and the federal letters arrived. Hit that subscribe button. Here are 25 ordinary 1980s artifacts the law has since erased. Number 25. Lawn darts. The lawn dart was the proud centerpiece of the 1986 summer cookout in Ohio backyards from Cleveland to Cincinnati. A weighted steel tip, a plastic tail, and a sticker on the box telling you to aim it at a hoop on the grass. The father of the house set the hoop up by the kiddie pool. The children took turns lobbing 4-inch metal spikes into the sky and squinting at the trajectory. A pair of jarts sat at the hardware store on the end cap display in a cardboard box with cartoon cheerfulness on the lid. In April of 1987, a 7-year-old girl named Michelle Snow was killed in her backyard in Riverside, California, when a dart thrown over a fence by another child came down on her head. Her father, David Snow, an aerospace production supervisor at the local plant, made 7 trips to Washington over the next 18 months. He hand-delivered letters and stood in CPSC hearing rooms with photographs of his daughter. On October 28, 1988, the Consumer Product Safety Commission voted the ban, citing roughly 6,100 emergency room injuries and at least 3 deaths. Stores pulled the boxes from shelves the week before Christmas. The original jarts cannot be sold, imported, or given away at a garage sale. A federal hazard ever since. Number 24. Lead-painted Hot Wheels. Every Christmas morning of the early 1980s, a kid somewhere unwrapped a box of die-cast metal cars and immediately started chewing on the orange one. The orange paint was the brightest, and the brightest was the one a 5-year-old put in his mouth. The factory had used lead-based pigment because it stayed glossy under playroom light. Mattel knew. The retailers knew. The federal government, by 1978, had already banned lead paint in household products. But the inventory in toy chests did not vanish on the day the ban took effect. Some of those orange cars stayed in circulation through the entire Reagan administration. Today, a die-cast toy sold in the United States must meet a hard ceiling of 90 parts per million for lead, set by the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act of 2008. Anything older than that is technically contraband if you tried to sell it. Number 23. Smoking on the airplane. By 1985, a passenger could light a Marlboro in row 27 of a TWA flight from Newark to Los Angeles and ask the flight attendant for a refill on his Coke. The smoking section was the back 6 rows. The non-smoking section was every row in front of it, which was a polite fiction because cabin air mixes in about 90 seconds. Babies sat in the smoking rows. Flight attendants worked in there for 8 hours at a stretch. In April of 1988, Congress banned smoking on domestic flights under 2 hours. By 2000, the federal ban covered every commercial flight in and out of the United States. The ashtray in the armrest sat there for another decade as a fossil of a different era. Number 22. The 3-wheeled ATV. Every summer in the early 1980s, a 14-year-old in a Honda t-shirt was riding a 3-wheeled ATC up a hill behind his cousin's farmhouse with no helmet. After a ride, he stirred up dust and poured a tin cup of well water over his head. The original Honda US 90, introduced in 1970 at $595, was the ancestor of the line, and the smaller ATC 70, marketed to youngsters starting in 1973, sold for a few hundred more by the time of the 1985 model year. The fundamental design flaw was geometric. 3 wheels arranged in a triangle with a high center of gravity and no rear differential tip over the moment the rider leans the wrong way on a slope. The Consumer Product Safety Commission began tracking the wreckage in 1983, when annual injury estimates jumped from 8,500 to over 27,000 in a single year. Between January 1982 and September 1987, more than 900 riders had died on three-wheelers, a fatality count concentrated among teenage boys on family farms in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and rural California. In 1987, the CPSC filed suit under Section 12 of the Consumer Product Safety Act, asking a federal court to declare the three-wheeler an imminent hazard. The lawsuit settled on April 27, 1988, when Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and Polaris signed a consent decree with the Justice Department. The five companies agreed to halt all three-wheeler production immediately and to underwrite a $100 million rider safety campaign. New three-wheelers stopped shipping in 1988. You cannot legally sell a new one in California or any other U.S. state today. The post-war tradition of three-wheeled riding ended quietly in a courtroom. Number 21. Riding in the pickup bed. The wind in the bed of a Ford F-100 hit you sideways at 45 miles an hour, smelling of cut grass and the cooler full of Coca-Cola at your feet. Four kids sat on the wheel wells holding their baseball caps. The Labrador knew where the wind came from and sat at the front. The truck went 60 miles an hour down a county road in Riverside County in 1986, and nobody in the cab thought it unusual. California passed its restriction in 1998 after a tailgate fatality. 20 other states followed. Today, it is illegal to put a child under 18 in the open bed of a moving pickup truck. Number 20. Glass mercury thermometers. Holding a glass thermometer under your tongue for 3 minutes was the standard parental ritual of a 1986 sick day. The thermometer lived in a slim plastic tube in the medicine cabinet next to the rubbing alcohol and the chewable aspirin. Inside the glass was a silver bead of elemental mercury, a potent neurotoxin and also one of the most beautiful liquids ever to sit in a child's bathroom. Kids broke them. The glass was thin. The thermometer rolled off the counter, hit the tile, and a constellation of silver droplets scattered across the floor. Children spread the droplets around with the eraser end of a pencil. By the early 2000s, 20 states, including Vermont, Maine, and California, had banned the sale of mercury thermometers outright. The Environmental Protection Agency classifies a broken household thermometer as a hazardous waste incident requiring professional cleanup. The pharmacy where your mother bought yours for $2 is legally barred from selling one today. Number 19. Leaded gasoline at the pump. The pump at the corner Sunoco station in suburban Pittsburgh in 1986 had 3 nozzles: unleaded, premium unleaded, and the cheapest one in red, which was leaded regular. Dad pulled up in the station wagon, poured leaded regular into the tank at 68 cents a gallon, then drained the last drops from the nozzle and drove off, pumping tetraethyl lead into the air over a school zone 2 blocks away. The Environmental Protection Agency had been phasing it out since 1973 on health and air quality grounds. By January of 1996, leaded gasoline was federally banned for use in on-road vehicles. The red-handled nozzle disappeared from every gas station in the country. You can still get leaded fuel for a racing car or a small plane. Selling it for your minivan is now a federal offense. Number 18. The baby walker at the top of the stairs. A Graco walker rolled at full speed across the kitchen linoleum toward an open basement door. The user manual had no warning about stairs. The wheels glided easily on hardwood and linoleum, aimed at whichever surface looked most interesting. The industry eventually agreed to a voluntary standard requiring walkers to be too wide to fit through a doorway or to stop at the edge of a step. The Consumer Product Safety Commission made the standard mandatory. The original design is now illegal to import or sell. A small machine erased by a single rule. Number 17. The M80 firecracker. "Stand back," the older cousin told the kids on a Pittsburgh driveway in July 1986, holding a stubby red firecracker over an empty Campbell's soup can. He dropped it in. The can launched 20 feet into the air. The M80 was sold under the counter at the gas station as contraband. often wrapped inside a brown paper bag, and slid across the register. It contained roughly 3 grams of flash powder, enough to take off a finger, and occasionally did. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms classifies any device with more than 50 milligrams of pyrotechnic composition as a federal explosive. Congress had already banned consumer fireworks above that threshold under the Child Protection Act of 1966, and the federal regulations were rewritten in 1976 to put the 50 milligram ceiling explicitly into the Consumer Product Code. A real M80 carries 60 times that limit. Possession today can bring up to 10 years in federal prison and a fine of $250,000, with steeper consequences attached if anyone is injured by the device. The under-the-counter M80 has moved firmly into the world of federal felony. Number 16. The Asbestos hairdryer. The Conair 1200 sat on the bathroom counter of a ranch house in suburban Detroit, plugged in, blowing warm air through a heating element insulated with chrysotile asbestos. Mom used it every morning for 10 minutes before the bus came. Through the heat shield, a cloud of microscopic asbestos fibers blew straight into her face along with the warm air. She breathed it in, then handed the dryer to her child, who breathed it in too. In April of 1979, after the Consumer Product Safety Commission ran tests on a representative slate of brands, the industry voluntarily disclosed 111 separate hairdryer models that contained asbestos liners. Sears alone identified 14 of its catalog models and pulled them from stores on April 4th of that year. Conair, JCPenney, Sunbeam, Scoville, and Gillette all accepted returns and refunded purchase prices. The CPSC consumer hotline took roughly 2,500 inquiries a day at the peak of the recall, and the agency later reported that as many as 6,000 callers an hour could not get through. By the mid-1980s, the asbestos heat shield was gone from new dryers, but plenty of old ones were still in service in basement bathrooms across the Rust Belt. The Federal Toxic Substances Control Act now prohibits asbestos in any new household appliance. Number 15. Smoking in the family restaurant. Sitting in a booth at a Bob Evans in suburban Columbus in 1986, a 6-year-old child was coloring a placemat while a family at the next booth, working through a $7 plate of pancakes, lit a second round of Virginia Slims. The smoking section was on the left, non-smoking on the right. No wall, no curtain, no fan. The smoke drifted across the dining room into the booster seats. Aspen, Colorado banned smoking in restaurants in 1985. California followed in 1995. The polite request for a smoking booth, a post-war American tradition stretching back through the wartime cafeterias of the 1940s, is now a city ordinance violation in 9 out of 10 American towns. The booth has gone quiet. Number 14. The original Cabbage Patch Kids. The smell of new vinyl and yarn hair filled the toy aisle at a Toys R Us in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on the night of December 22, 1983, when roughly 1,000 parents stood in line for fewer than 200 Cabbage Patch Kids on the shelf. The store opened the doors. Adults punched each other. A store clerk pulled a baseball bat from under the counter and waved it overhead to push the crowd back from the pallet. One mother left with a broken leg. Another left with a doll. The dolls retailed for $24.99 at Coleco's suggested price and resold in parking lots that night for $200. Xavier Roberts, an art student from Cleveland, Georgia, had stitched the first ones by hand in 1978 and sold them with adoption papers and a birth certificate. By 1985, Coleco was shipping 24 million units a year, and the dolls were the best-selling Christmas toy in American history. The trouble started in the accessory line. The 1985 Cabbage Patch Koosa Pet line included small plastic eye stems and detachable accessories that fit inside a toddler's windpipe. What surprised me most in the CPSC investigation file was that Coleco received reports of choking before the Christmas shipment had cleared the warehouse. In the spring of 1986, Coleco issued a voluntary recall on the Koosa accessory line and certain split-in image dolls with detachable button eyes. By late 1988, Coleco itself filed for bankruptcy, in part from the cost of safety retooling and brand lawsuits. Hasbro bought the line in 1989. The original 1983 dolls, with their unguarded yarn hair and small part eyes, would not pass modern ASTM 963 small part standards today. A toy store that sold one in original packaging would face a federal hold. Number 13. Riding in the front seat without a seatbelt. Every Sunday drive of the mid-1980s involved a station wagon, 4 passengers, and a total of 2 functional seatbelts. The kids in the back rolled around on a bench seat without any restraint, leaning into the corners. The mom in the front passenger seat tucked the belt behind her shoulder because it wrinkled her blouse. The dad behind the wheel had never worn one a day in his life. New York passed the first mandatory seatbelt law in 1984. By 1995, every state except New Hampshire had followed. Today, every state has a law requiring children to ride in a federally approved car seat or booster with specific weight and height triggers, and every state but New Hampshire requires adults in the front seat to belt up. The fine for an unbelted child runs as high as $500 depending on the state. The seatbelt was suddenly the price of leaving the driveway. Number 12. The illegal CB radio linear amplifier. It sat on the dashboard of a 1980 Pontiac Trans Am like a small black brick with 2 glowing tubes inside and a red toggle switch on the side. The trucker community of fathers, uncles, and weekend hobbyists called it a linear, and it boosted a 4-watt CB radio signal to 200 watts of broadcast power. The amplifier turned a hobbyist radio into a low-end commercial transmitter. It stomped on aircraft frequencies, hospital paging, and the neighbor's television. The Federal Communications Commission had banned the sale and use of linear amplifiers on CB frequencies since 1977. Enforcement caught up through the 1980s. A post-war hobby tradition of pirate broadcasting died on the desk of FCC enforcement officers. Today, operating a CB radio with a linear amplifier is a violation of federal law carrying a fine of up to $10,000 per day. Number 11. The lawn sprayed with chlorpyrifos. Every spring weekend of the 1980s, the figure in a white tank top and gym shorts was walking across the Bermuda lawn with a hose-end sprayer full of Dursban, the brand name for chlorpyrifos. He poured a fresh bottle into the canister, stirred it with the cap, and walked the perimeter. Dursban killed grubs, fleas, fire ants, and anything else that crawled. It was sold at every hardware store under names like Lorsban and Dursban TC and stacked in pyramid displays for Memorial Day weekend. Dow Chemical patented the molecule in 1966 and rolled it out as the suburban replacement for the just-banned chlorinated insecticides. By June of 2000, after a wave of new research on developmental neurotoxicity in young children, the Environmental Protection Agency reached a phase-out agreement with Dow to end all residential indoor and lawn formulations. Dursban came off retail shelves on a schedule that ran into 2005. In August of 2021, the EPA went further and revoked all food crop tolerances under the Food Quality Protection Act. A federal appeals court reversed that food crop ruling in November of 2023, kicking the regulation back for crop-by-crop review, but the original residential ban remains intact. The hose-end bottle on the garage shelf next to the rake is now classified as household hazardous waste, requiring controlled disposal. Number 10. The drop-side crib. The Bassett drop-side crib, made in Virginia and shipped to Pennsylvania nurseries, was the standard American bedroom fixture in 1986. A wooden frame and a long side that slid down on metal tracks so a tired parent could reach the baby without bending over. Every grandmother's house had one in the spare room as part of a post-war American nursery tradition. The hardware failed. The plastic guides cracked, the side fell loose, and the gap between the mattress and the rail became a small guillotine. Between 2000 and 2010, the Consumer Product Safety Commission documented at least 32 infant suffocation and strangulation deaths attributable to drop-side rail failure, with another 14 fatalities suspected. In the 5 years leading up to the federal ban, more than 9 million drop-side cribs were recalled by major manufacturers, including Stork Craft, Delta Enterprise, Graco, Evenflow, LaJoby, and Pottery Barn Kids. The commission voted unanimously in December 2010 to outlaw the design under the new Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, and the rule took full effect in June of 2011. Used drop sides are now illegal to sell, resell, or donate, and child care centers were given a hard deadline to remove the design from every licensed facility in the country. Number 9. The plastic Halloween mask with no peripheral vision. Every Halloween of the mid-80s, a child trick-or-treating after dark was wearing a Ben Cooper costume that came in a flat cardboard box with a plastic mask, a single rubber band, and 2 tiny eye holes the size of a quarter. The mask was made of pressed vinyl that smelled like a new shower curtain and held a faint trace of the factory glue. It covered the entire face. The eye holes were positioned for a face that was not yours. Cars on residential streets had no warning that a small child crossing the road could not see them. Ben Cooper went bankrupt at the end of the decade partly because of mounting injury lawsuits. The Consumer Product Safety Commission tightened costume flammability and visibility standards through the 1990s. Today, the original Ben Cooper mask design fails federal toy safety standards on at least 4 grounds and cannot legally be sold as new product. Number 8. The toy gun without an orange tip. By 1985, every boy in the neighborhood owned a realistic-looking plastic revolver, a daisy cap pistol, or a die-cast Western six-shooter that was nearly indistinguishable from a real handgun from 6 feet away. He pointed it at his sister, his babysitter, and occasionally a passing police cruiser. In May of 1988, Congress amended the federal toy gun law to require every toy firearm sold in the United States to carry a blaze orange muzzle plug, ring, or marking, with the rule taking full effect in 1989. The toy revolver without an orange tip is now a federal violation for any retailer to sell, and police officers across the country are trained to treat the unmarked version as the real thing. Number 7. The tanning bed for a 15-year-old. When the Suburban Mall opened its second Hollywood Tans in 1986, a 15-year-old in a windbreaker walked in with a punch card and climbed into a coffin-shaped UV booth for 12 minutes of unsupervised radiation. She had been dropped off in the Florida humidity and was left alone while the family ran errands next door at the JCPenney. The tanning bed used both UVA and UVB lamps, putting out roughly 12 times the burn risk of midday sun in July. The salon attendant was a high school junior making minimum wage. No medical consent was required. No goggles were enforced. The booth was advertised on the back of yearbooks and in the corner ads of 17 magazine. The World Health Organization classified tanning beds as a Group 1 carcinogen in 2009. Today, 36 American states ban tanning bed use by anyone under 18, regardless of parental consent. Several more require a parent's notarized signature for 16 and 17-year-olds. The bored teenager with a punch card is now committing a state misdemeanor in most of the country. Number 6. The slip and slide for grown-ups. Every Friday afternoon at a backyard barbecue, a grown adult was eyeballing the strip of yellow plastic that the kids had just stopped using and thinking about taking a run at it himself. The slip and slide, manufactured by Wham-O, was a 30-foot vinyl runway with a hose hookup along one edge. It worked beautifully for a 40-pound rider. It did not work for a 200-pound adult who would hit the end of the runway with enough force to compress his spine. Wham-O documented at least 8 adult spinal injuries and 1 fatality. The Consumer Product Safety Commission issued a warning letter, and Wham-O added a label prohibiting adult use. Adult use of a slip and slide in the United States is now legally classified as a product misuse that voids any liability claim. Number 5. The pressed wood dresser off-gassing formaldehyde. Picture the bedroom of a mid-80s Cleveland teenager. Wood-paneled walls, shag carpet, a Madonna poster, and a brand-new Souter pressed wood dresser bought from the back of the JCPenney catalog for $119. The dresser was made from particle board glued together with urea formaldehyde resin. Every night for the next 8 years, the dresser quietly released formaldehyde gas into the closed bedroom while the teenager slept 3 feet away. Formaldehyde is a known human carcinogen and a respiratory irritant. The EPA estimated indoor levels in homes with new pressed wood furniture at 5 to 10 times outdoor concentrations. A decade later, the EPA finalized Title VI of the Toxic Substances Control Act, capping formaldehyde emissions from composite wood products. Soon after, the rule was mandatory for every dresser, cabinet, and bookshelf sold in the United States. The Reagan-era dresser would fail the federal limit on day one. Number 4. The buried Atari ET cartridges. The Alamogordo, New Mexico municipal landfill received between 10 and 20 semi-trailer loads of unsold Atari merchandise out of an El Paso warehouse starting in late September of 1983. Inside the trucks were roughly 700,000 crushed cartridges of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, along with copies of Centipede, Pac-Man, and other unsold inventory from the company's collapsing console business. On September 29th of that year, the landfill operators poured a concrete cap over the load, an unusual finishing step that turned the burial into an industrial monument. Atari did not file the proper paperwork to dispose of electronic waste. The cartridges contained leaded solder, plastic, and small amounts of cadmium. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, signed in 1976, made unpermitted disposal of electronic and chemical waste a federal violation. The Alamogordo burial sat for 30 years as a kind of urban legend until April 26, 2014, when a documentary crew with a city permit excavated the site and recovered 1,382 cartridges, confirming the story. Today, dumping a single truckload of leaded electronics in a municipal landfill without a permit would draw federal prosecution and an enormous cleanup bill from the EPA. Number 3. Lead solder in the can of soup. Standing in the soup aisle of a 1986 Kroger, a shopper picked up a can of Campbell's chicken noodle that had been sealed shut with a thin bead of tin lead solder running along the side seam. The lead bled into the broth at low concentrations over the months the can sat on a pantry shelf next to the green beans. The Food and Drug Administration had first approved lead solder in food cans back in 1939, and it took half a century to undo that decision. Through the 1970s and 1980s, the FDA pressured the industry to phase out the practice on the basis of mounting evidence about lead and child neurological development. In November of 1991, American can manufacturers voluntarily eliminated lead seams from domestic food cans. Imported product kept arriving with the old seams until the formal federal rule landed. On December 27, 1995, the FDA published its prohibition on lead solder in any food or beverage container sold in the United States, codified at 21 CFR 189.240. Modern cans use welded or two-piece construction. The Kroger can, with the visible silver seam, is a federal violation if a manufacturer produced it after 1995. Number 2. Riding loose in the back of a moving RV. Few summer vacations of 1986 captured the spirit of the era like the family Winnebago rolling down Interstate 70 with 2 kids playing Uno on the dinette, a third kid asleep in the bunk above the cab, and Grandma reading a paperback in the swivel chair facing backward. None of them were belted in. The driver was, because of state seatbelt laws. Everyone else was a free-floating object inside a moving living room. By the mid-2000s, more than half of U.S. states had passed laws requiring all passengers in a motorhome to be seated and belted while the vehicle was in motion. California, New York, and a dozen others class an unbelted RV passenger as a primary offense. The cousin doing the dishes in the back of a moving Winnebago is now a ticketable violation in most of the country. Number 1. The lead-painted metal lunchbox. It hung from a child's hand on the walk to first grade in 1986 in a Massachusetts schoolyard, a metal Star Wars lunchbox with Boba Fett on the front in vivid chrome yellow, magenta, and red. The lithographed paint contained lead in concentrations that would not be legal in any household product today. Aladdin Industries and Thermos made millions of these boxes through the 1970s and 1980s, and they sat on lunchroom shelves in every elementary school in the country. By 2003, the Center for Environmental Health had tested vintage metal lunchboxes and found lead levels up to 7 times the federal limit. Today, the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act of 2008 caps lead in any item sold for children at 100 parts per million. The original Boba Fett lunchbox would fail the federal test by a factor of 40, a schoolyard relic ruled hazardous. Share with us in the comments which one of these still sits in your garage, basement, or the back of a closet from 1986. 25 products, 25 federal letters, the lawn dart, the leaded gas pump, the original Cabbage Patch doll, the asbestos dryer. None of them looked dangerous in the catalog. The lawyers arrived in the 1990s. The recalls landed in the 2000s. The federal letters never stopped coming. The J.C. Penney catalog of 1986 is now a binder of cease and desist orders. The CPSC took 20 years to clear out the worst of it. The suburbs went on without most of what once sat on their shelves, and almost nobody noticed the difference.